Kalpesh, good morning.
Good morning, Manoj.
Hi.
Hi.
So you can start your share screen and then we'll wait for just a minute or two. There's about 49 participants. So as soon as we cross 50, we will start. Okay.
Sure. Absolutely. I'll start the screen share. Give me a moment.
Yeah, sure.
Nice background, Manoj.
Hi, Rafael. Good morning.
Good morning.
That's a picture of my terrace garden.
Very nice.
Sunil?
Good morning, sir.
Yeah. Hi, good morning. You're noting the attendance, right?
Yes.
Okay. Rafael, were you able to hear the music this time?
Yes, it was very soothing, very nice.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so we'll start. Good morning, friends. The speaker for today is Mr. Kalpesh Raichura. Kalpesh Raichura is a firm believer that every individual is born with a purpose and has a USP. All you need to do is discover it. An active listener, a people's person, and an inside the box thinking practitioner with a vision to help people and communities on expanding circles of trust. A certified executive coach, Herman HBDI, certified practitioner, COPC implementation leader, has been an influential leader for more than 2 decades in various roles. Currently working on business consulting, leadership excellence, and executive coaching with various organizations to create sustainable results by creating winning cultures and mindsets. Community builder with various projects like Path, Creators, ICF, Candid Conversations, Hyphen, Core HR, IR, LinkedIn, Local, Navi Mumbai. He's also a Garba dancer, avid reader, marathoner, and cyclist.
Thank you so
Welcome,
much,
Kalpesh. Over to
Manoj.
you.
And glad that Sunday morning and we have 54 participants already online. I think that's kudos to the PMI Mumbai chapter. Yeah, it's great going. And I think we all do this
Yes,
week on
this.
week, right?
Yes, we have been doing it since lockdown. Almost every Sunday we have been doing
Awesome.
it.
So hearty congratulations on my behalf to you and your team, Manoj, for
Thank you.
amazing learning opportunities for the PMI chapter.
And thank you for being a speaker at also. We
Thank you
welcome
so
you.
much, Manoj. So good morning, one and all. Thank you for being here. It's a Sunday morning, and I know generally it's a little lazy start of the day, but all of us are here and looking forward to. Uh, and there are multiple reasons why we would be here, right? So one of them is to look at what do I have to contribute on decoding and mastering excellence. So there are a couple of protocols which I want to just share with all of us that I'm not going to do all the talking. So one thing you're going to be saved this morning is do you have to keep listening to whatever gyan that I have to share and whatever thoughts that I have in my mind out of my experience? The answer is no. We're going to keep it interactive. We're going to look at how we explore this, how we literally experience this, look at it, what we go through into the projects that we manage, into the work that we are doing at our respective offices, and hence it's going to be a lot more discussion mode rather than only the slideshow that I'm going to present. So are we game for it?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. So, couple of things is, Manoj, if I may request, one of us to keep an eye on the chat window and keep, sharing, because I'm going to ask a lot of people to share while they can unmute themselves and share it here directly, or they can also share on the chat window, whichever is comfortable for them.
Sure. I have Girish. Girish, are you there?
Hello, I'm here.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Girish. Good
Hi,
morning.
good morning, sir.
Yeah, can you keep a watch on the chat window? Even I'll keep a watch, but just in case. Okay, myself.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Manoj. Thank you, Girish, for the help, and thank you, Ashish, for confirming. That you're going to be able to listen to us. Okay, so let's begin this morning. And before just directly jumping into the decoding and mastering excellence, let me ask all of you: what does what does it tickle in your mind when you hear the word excellence? And I'll also request if few of you are in a position to keep your videos on, you'll be glad because I'm only seeing names on my window with nobody to see and talk to. Thanks, Sidesh. Appreciate you switching on your video. So when we talk about excellence, thanks, Pradmanya. Uh, the definition that I found in Google, or if I say in dictionary, is that excellence means the quality of being outstanding or extremely good. Um, and the beauty of this definition that it is not very conclusive. It is very relative. It is about quality of being outstanding, and outstanding in itself can have a lot of variations. That what does outstanding mean to us, and or extremely good. And again, a good is something that is something not measurable. I mean, there are different measures that different people have for being good. So what does excellence mean to you? Thanks, Cedric, for switching on your camera. Appreciate that. So let's hear it from some people, either on the chat or directly. You can unmute yourself and tell me, what does excellence mean to you? Anyone who would like to share?
Uh, Basically, sir, good morning. First of all, everybody here who's there
Yeah.
in the call, in the today's session. So, excellence is, I think, when the situation is good, when
Mm-hmm.
if you are good, and if you are handling good, if handling all the situation good, then it is good. But the real test comes when the situation is not under our control, and you are still able to balance it out with your ethics, what you believe in, what you have practiced over the years, and still able to emerge victorious. And so, experiencing both the sides, the good part and the bad part, and still managing to decide what is ethically correct for you if you believe in ethics. If you are not, what you believe in basically,
Yes.
what you have been grown up over seen, and what you have seen over the years, what you have basically gained throughout your professional career as well as your personal, how personally you are.
Wonderful. Very great. I think there were some very good things that you said, Siddesh, and I liked it. Where you spoke about the experience, about whether it be good or bad or emerging victorious. Which is one of the other things. And we'll explore. And I think, yeah, I can understand that ethics probably is something which is very important for you, because I think there was a lot of stress that you kept mentioning on the ethics part. So wonderful. Yeah, great. Hey, thanks. I think there are a lot of comments which I see on chat box as well. Doing something to the best of your abilities, delivering best in line with requirement, outstanding excellence, and to me it's a journey. Cedric, well said. To me it's a journey, a pursuit of perfection in whatever we do. Okay, great. Thank you for for sharing, and believe me, I'm not going to restrict that to saying only okay, this is one definition, because excellence is going to be very relative. It is about what or how it occurs to us, and what do we stand for. And thank you for the participation that you'll have shown in the chat window. We'll continue doing that. While we keep moving forward, may I only request if you have a pen and a paper handy, because there are a few places where I would want to explore a little part with you, and if you have a pen and a paper handy, it will help you go through the exercise with me. Thanks, Taruna. I could see the pen. Thanks, Cedric. Thanks, Sidesh. Great. So I'll take a moment's pause, and for all of you who want to just go and grab a pen and a paper, please do that. It will be helpful. Take my word. We'll be going to do some exercises which will be helpful for us. Okay, great. So with all, okay. So what has been shared by Aristotle, and I just thought it would be relevant for us to pick it up here right now. That what does Aristotle say? That what we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act but an habit. And how many of us have probably some relationship to this? Where we've seen that excellence is not something that just pops up once and you become excellent in something, or you do something, but it develops, and a lot of us have this whole pursuit. I think, Cedric, you used this word about in pursuit or seeking pursuit of perfection, is about seeking pursuit of excellence, that we keep striving for going to the next level, going to the next level, going to the next level. And hence I because I believed a lot in that quote, is where I presented it here, that excellence is not an act, it's an habit. Now question is that how do we develop that habit? Or the next question is actually, how do we even decode or understand that, how do we put ourselves into the frame which creates that habit for us, right? So let me ask all of you, how many of us go for exercising every day? I mean, we all know that exercising is important, but how many? Okay, thanks, Taruna. Thanks, Sadesh. Cedric, your big smile resonated with me. I've been having plans for so many months and years together. Yeah, but it's difficult, right? Rafael, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, totally agree with you.
Yeah, thanks, Manoj. Oh, wonderful. I think P. Jaiman, 10 to 12 kilometers in about 2 hours every day. That's brilliant. Amazing. And yes, others, not regularly. Uh, let me ask another question. How many of us meditate every day? While there's a lot of saga about mindfulness, meditation, exercising daily, uh, but does that happen? And the answer is honestly not for everyone. Yes, for a few people it does happen. And wow, Sumit does yoga for 5 days and meditation for 7 days. P. Jaiman, you seem to be an ideal person. You're doing a lot of exercise and you're also ensuring that you're doing meditation. I think that's something for us to pick up from you and look at how do you put that in your schedule. Yeah. So great. Yeah. If I relate one more area, which probably is a troublesome for all of us, is how many of us follow a healthy diet? We talk about it, we plan that, but there are a lot of times that it doesn't happen. We might have that phase in life where we go through that, no, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to do, and then after a few days we are back into the cycle. Now, if I ask this question to somebody like a P. Jaiman who's been doing this for years together, for them now it's not more an effort. For me, if I have to get up in the morning and say if I want to read a book for 30 minutes every day, I have to consciously do that, because it doesn't come naturally for me. But now if I keep doing that for maybe 20, 30, 40 years, probably it will evolve, but it doesn't happen overnight. So then if excellence is supposed to be a habit, and while we know a lot of right things that can happen for us, sometimes it just doesn't fall in place for us. So how do we then decode excellence? Any thoughts anyone would like to share? How do we decode this whole excellence piece, or get into the... Okay, Jayasurya, the voice is slow. Let me see if I need to increase my voice. Yeah, Guys, are you all able to hear me? Anyone, you're having difficulty in
We
listening to
can
me?
hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay. Jayaraman, maybe if you just want to check the audio settings at your end, because it seems that it's working here. So I'll just share the screen in a moment. So team, let me just hear from you all. What does Decode Excellence mean to you all? Making a conscious effort, wonderful. Consistent in doing the right things, okay, or things right. Plan, prepare, and practice. Okay, wonderful.
Implementation.
Okay, very good. Implementation is excellent. Execution, implementation. I think that's something very crucial and critical. So great. Thank you, team. So what I've done is for our discussion to get some direction, I've just tried to put some thoughts here, and we'll explore that together. Anand, thank you. Yes, improving the process, which itself gives good output and deliver excellence in any situation, and making things regularly in planned way, practice thing. Okay, wonderful. So here are three areas that we're going to use today to decode excellence. I hope all of you are able to see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. So what are we going to talk about is three things, elements: goal, strategy, and leadership. So, if I may ask somebody to maybe just give some insights, whoever can come on the online and tell me. So what's the difference when we talk about a goal and a strategy?
Goal is you plan something to be done. And
Okay.
strategy is a way how to reach that goal.
Wonderful.
How you implement that.
Prashant, you stole the entire show, my friend.
So thanks.
No, wonderful. I think, yeah, so
Goal is what to achieve, and strategy is how to achieve.
very good, Murli. Thank you so much. I think that's well said. And, while both of you, Prashant and Murli, all beautifully summed it up, and I'll share my personal experience that I've seen. I've been a part of a lot of board meetings and the current consultings that I do. There are a lot of meetings which are, the board meetings, and where teams are presenting their strategy. What we still end up hearing is a lot more of what they are aspiring to do. What is it that they have in pipeline of what they are going to do? And as you rightly said, Murli and Prashant, what we are going to do or what we want to achieve is a lot more about the goal aspect, while what we actually or how we will do it, or what is that action plan we have in place, is what is considered as a strategy, right? So here is an invitation that I want to make to all of you. All of us currently in our respective roles will be handling either one project or multiple projects which are going on, and there will be a result that is expected in a defined timeline. Would you be able to just maybe draw a circle on the center of the page that you have and write down what is that goal, what is that current project outcome that you're handling, which you're working on right now? And feel free, team, to share it on the chat as well. So we get a couple of references of what kind of projects you're working on right now, or what is it, what is the expected result that you have out of that project. Okay, Cedric is working on digital transformation. Wonderful. And Cedric, is there a kind of timeline that you have that in the next 6 months or 1 year or 2 years, what scale of organization is yours? Rushali, thanks. Health research, the payment API implementation, health research platform, P2P process automation. Okay, Cedric says 1 year time, and organization certification and compliance. Okay, great, Taruna, thanks. And improve the channel experience. Okay, wonderful. So now, landscape project and lobby interiors, digitization of corporate banking. Okay, great. I'm working on a project for design and development for IT system. Wonderful. Hey guys, great, great. Keep sharing. I think this is wonderful, and I think these are real-time goals. Personal goals, Priya, please feel free to add. If that's a project you're working on, please add that, because while a lot of us are extremely good at project management in our professional lives, somehow our personal lives taken for granted. So feel free if personal goal is something that you're aspiring for. Okay, payment implementation within 30 days. Okay, yeah, Vrushali, thanks. Okay, personal goal is reading books. Wonderful. And Taruna, keep that on, because we're going to actually drill a little further down into that whole aspect. Okay, great. I think, thank you, team. I really appreciate the team's participation, and we're actually seeing personal goals. We're seeing a lot of professional goals. Pradyuman, wonderful, staying positive during COVID. I think that's you've actually touched the core, because a lot of us are dealing with that currently, and it does take an effort, because it's a complete change management that we're going through in an ecosystem. 4 months in a row we are staying at home. None of us have been used to it. So yes. Okay, great. Thanks, Manoj, for product on software development in healthcare space and registry for rare diseases in 3 years time frame. Wonderful. That's awesome. So team, what we're going to do is now that you've mentioned the goal that you've written there, I'm going to take you all through a little drill down on that. Okay. And what I want to talk to all of you about is, for the goal that you've mentioned, and Manoj, just a time check. I know you've mentioned that we'll take a break at about 11 o'clock. So just that if I'm in the flow, give me a buzzer at about 10:50, 55 that, okay, Kalpesh, we need to go on a break. So if I miss on, keeping the time check.
Sure, no problem. It's not hard and fast, so we can have sometime up and down, not a problem.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so how many of us watch cricket? You can respond by saying yes, no. Okay, great. Thanks, Manoj. Thanks, Siddesh. And people who I'm not able to see, I only have about 6-7 windows open in front of me, because I'm also seeing the slides. So how many of us follow cricket? Rohit, thank you. Yes. Just type yes or no in the windows. Thanks, Siddesh. I noted that. Yeah, thank you. Okay, yes. So I'm going to consider that out of 73 people, at least 50 plus people would be following cricket or watching cricket, right? Now, I'm going to just bring a resemblance to cricket as a sport into the project management that we do, or all of us do, is only because it becomes easy to relate to. Okay. So now, keeping the goal that you have in mind. Yeah, Taruna, you had a question? Okay, sorry. Okay. If you have a question, feel free. Great, thank you, team. So now, when you have that goal and you've written down, for example, reading books or API implementation or digital transformation that we have in our organization, my question is, what is the game? And when we talk about a goal, a lot of times, and I've taken this quote, "What by when," from the book Playing to Win by A.G. Lafley, who was a CEO of P&G for a long time, and he's written this book called Playing to Win. And the book completely talks about strategy, and the first thing that he talks about is what by when, and when we talk about our goals. So question is, before we actually come to the final thing on what by when, my question is, what is the game? So the goal that you've taken, or the project that you're working, why is the first question. So why, or what is the outcome, or what is the business impact or personal impact that's going to have in your life? So what is the game? So Cedric, by doing digital transformation for your organization, what is that outcome? What is the business impact?
So from my perspective, game is like game always have like win and loss. So even if you like to build a API, you need to strategize. To play as well, you need to strategize. So
Right.
there will be multiple strategy to win a game. So we need to strategize to build a API. We need to do a planning. So design.
Right.
So all these are strategies. So this is
Right.
the yeah.
A wonderful, Ashwini, and thanks for participating. Thanks for sharing it aloud. So yes, and Ashwini, that's so one is, maybe I'll only take the first point and say that it's a little different that we're going to talk here. Of course, one is about, whether you win or you lose, but that's something at a point we don't start playing the game with, right? So an India team goes into a match with either a Sri Lanka or a Zimbabwe or an Australia, it goes with the thought that I want to win the game. That's why you first of all start playing the game.
Yeah.
Like, today in this whole pandemic, me and my wife and my daughter, we've fallen in love with this Ludo King, the app which is there.
Yes.
And with all said and done, that desire to win every game or putting those I should be the first to put all my 4 coins at home is always the driver, right? So I don't start the game with saying, well, you know what, I may lose, but I'm going to still play it. That's always there at the core when you set the goal.
Yeah, true.
Right? The question which I'm trying to identify here, Ashwini, with asking these questions of what will be the business impact, or even the point where you said that they will require multiple strategies, but that strategies will change the minute we have the thought of what is it that we're trying to get out of it. For example, in a cricket match, we talk about the understanding that what is the game is. Is it a 50-over match? Is it a T20? Or is it a 5-day test match? Or is it a Ranji Trophy, which is 3 days? The question is, what is the game? So digital transformation, for example, for Cedric is 1-year game. For Vrushali, the API implementation is a 30-day game. And now that one is the timeline she has of what is the game, the second, I'm sure, what is the business impact is equally critical. Taruna, the way to relate this to your aspiration about books, reading books. 2 questions. What books are you, why you want to read books? One very open thing is, I want to gain knowledge. But gain knowledge, if you step into, a crossword, which I have, there's a crossword in Pune, and I think they have in stock about 12,000 plus books. And if I even aim, I'm going to not be able to finish all of that, considering I'm a very slow reader. So I can't even think of reading that. But why you want to read books? Which books are you talking about? So what's the game you're playing?
Yeah, that's again a digging question to me.
Right.
Because when this pandemic started, I just started reading the books. I just put pick up one Gita book by Devnak Patnaik, Devdutt Patnaik, and then I started reading. I find it interesting. After that, I started love languages, 5 love languages, the relationship mantras between people. So now I am reading this book, The Monk Who Sold the Ferrari. This is in front of me right now.
Wonderful.
So the way I'm taking it like a game is again a self-improvement. The one thing I took from the book and I start to implement it on my life. That is the
great. So would you be comfortable sharing which is the one area that you've started implementing?
From every book, like I took one point, like from love languages, I took like what is the your love language or your spouse love language or your partner love language, so that you can work on that.
Wonderful.
Okay. Yes. And now in this book, because this is based on like how you can achieve that happiness from like within or from the word, so that you can be like at calm and peace. So that I'm working on it. So just I'm reading the book and I'm getting what I can like relate and get into my life.
Wonderful. Great. Thanks for sharing that, Tarun. So team, for, and wonderful. Priya, I think you'd mentioned about personal goals. So I think the question to you will remain the same, which I asked Taruna is what personal goal are you talking? What is the game? What are you aiming for? And Taruna, just a drill down that you can keep in mind. So wonderful that you already, you're on the third book during this entire process. To probably at least have a direction of what is that knowledge mean to you, or what area of your life that you're looking at impacting first. So when you want to read books, and the category I think you defined is the self-development, or more on improving your relationships, or understanding Gita. And Devdutt Pattanaik I think talks a lot more also on management lessons out of Gita. I think Robin Sharma's current book that you're also reading, talks about how you can stretch yourself, how your mind actually becomes a limitation to your own beliefs. So question is, for our project, we have a timeline. Do we also know what is the business impact? So all of you, the goal that you've written in the center of your book, can you maybe just draw 2 arrows and write down the timeline that you have for that? And what is the business impact? What is the personal impact? What do you want to gain out of this goal that you have in your hand? Yes, Siddesh, you want to share something? Siddesh, I think you're on mute. We're not able to hear you.
No, sir.
Okay.
So it's fine.
Okay, great. Great. So anyone thinking habit techniques which we use during meeting, wearing different hats? Okay, wonderful, Prashant. I think that's an awesome technique. And if you're practicing that consciously, I think that's a wonderful way of bringing effectiveness and efficiencies into your meetings. Would anyone want to now share for any projects that you're doing at office? Like, Ashwini, you were mentioning about different goals or different implementation things that you had at hand. What is the business impact that we're talking about with this goal?
Yeah, so the business impact will be a customer should be satisfied whatever we are delivering to customer. So he should be satisfied, and his like goals should be handed over to him, so that he can work efficiently on whatever we are delivering to the customer.
Wonderful, Ashwini. And Ashwini, is there a way, just a moment, okay? Ashwini, is there a way in which you'll have defined how will you measure that customer satisfaction? Like, how will you know that the customer is satisfied with what you've delivered?
So customer has given us like set of requirements. So we work on that set of requirements, and we strategize how those functionalities will be cut it down and work on it. So we work on those, and while working on those, like I'm a UI developer, so I think of UX perspective as well. So we should think of like where how customer will be using the portal or particular page.
Right.
So where he will be clicking, or how easy it should be to him to click on the functionality to get it the page done, or get the experience easy.
Yeah, which is wonderful, Ashwini. And I think, I'm sure you're doing all the test cases for that, and you're looking at all the possible ways of doing it. I just want to probably go a little more. Is have you when we define that a customer should be happy or be satisfied, do we have a way to measure that?
So we will be getting feedback from customer, right? If customer is happy, so he will give us a feedback. So yeah, we are using your system. We are nowhere lagging inside that. So it is running wonderfully. The portal is running wonderfully, and we are able to function it properly. So these are the customer feedback. So
wonderful.
We are getting positive feedback. Then yeah, we are done.
Great, Ashwini.
Win game, yeah.
Wonderful, great. And Ashwini, just an insight from my side and my experiences. Yes, one is about the customer feedback that they will receive or you will receive, but a lot of times, and this is just a a best practice sharing that I'm doing with all of you. If it's a B2B market, and if you're doing something for our clients, the two things. One is, do we have any way of getting the actual feedback from the client's customers, the end user who is going to do it? Because that will be the true test. The second is that there might be a project manager or the agile, in agile language that we say that a project sponsor or a project partner that you would have. The question is, do we limit only to that person's feel good or the person saying yes or a no? Or is it, there's multiple users who are using that and then giving us. So defining those goals or measures, that how will we define a success for this goal that you have, will actually help you be very clear that what is the input that you require at this stage while you're designing your strategy for the goal. So just a couple of best practices, Shuni, you can just go back to the design table and think about it.
So Kalpesh,
Yes,
on
Murli.
this I have something like we define SLIs, which is like service level indicators, and then we have SLAs, which is service level agreements, and have tools and techniques inside the organization to measure the SLAs.
Wonderful.
No, I mean not SLAs, I mean the SLIs, the service level indicators. And measure self, whether we are able to meet the SLAs we have agreed with the customer. This is besides the feedback, taking feedback from customers and interviewing them. But this is the actual picture which gives us whether we are able, where we stand like, and this is measurable. Quantification also happens.
Wonderful, Murli. I think that's very well said, and I think quantifying that or being able to have those metrics in place helps, because then it's like, if I go back into the cricket match example, if I know the run rate, or if I know what is the final score that I want, or if I'm aware about the rules of the game, that if it's a 50-over match, I know I have to complete my overs within 3.5 hours. I have to use a minimum of 5 bowlers, and all those combinations or all the rules of the game which I have, is, if that's defined and I know a way to measure it, I think you're on the right track, Murli. Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that, Murli.
So, by example, one more example I'll give you is, we agree, we have an SLA with the customer. It is a B2B kind of integration we have with the bank, and we have an agreement on SLA saying that for the transaction which he initiates, we agreed with him saying that end to end we complete the transaction within 5 milliseconds.
Wonderful.
And we measure this.
Wonderful.
And we publish the MAS also to the customers.
Super. Wonderful.
So, and when we agree this 5 millisecond will complete the transaction, there are different components inside the data center which come into picture, like different layers involved and all that, and then we agree. So that is how in our case it happens.
Okay, that's wonderful, Murli. Thank you for sharing. Krishna, thanks for sharing. You put this example on more revenue for us from the customer. I'll just come back to you. Siddesh wants to share something, so I'll take Siddesh's sharing and come back to the example that you've mentioned, Krishna. Yes, Siddesh. Siddesh, please unmute yourself.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So in my current organization, basically there are two types of projects. One is fixed bid project and one is time-based project.
Right.
So where I play a role in my team, not me alone. So I basically look in the track of how many man-days. If it is a time-based project, we need to keep a track of the man-days of the project, whether it is delivery, whether the work whether it is customization, configuration part, whether it is done in that fixed, in that mandate's fixed time frame or not. If it is exceeding it, then we either propose a change request to the customer, getting approval from them, or we propose us signing a support contract with them. So yeah, so that is one thing which I have learned in my current organization, which I did not learn in my previous.
Wonderful, Siddesh. So, Siddesh, while you actually spoke about the process part of it, of the two different kinds of agreements and then what is expected and how you do that, and we will come to that. So when we go into the strategy part, we will discuss in details at that. Here I want you to probably just maybe be present to the goal that you've written in the book right now. That what are those rules? So, for example, you mentioned, so the rules as either it's a flexi pay or time bound, right? And then yes, of course, if it's time bound, you always have a timeline, or even in flexi pay, you measure the time that you're taking. Then what is the expectation and what is the business impact? So if you can also, and the business impact can be two ways. One is the business impact for the customer or the client that you have. So if I'm say doing one project for a company in US or Australia or India itself, how are they going to use my product that I'm giving or the project that I'm working on, and what difference will it make to them? And the reason why I keep saying this is important is because, see, in any goal, I loved what Ashwini said, that in any goal, when you start or any project, the expectation is for you to win.
Yes,
So project jab bhi haath mein aayega, ya, what Murli also said, that the reason of having those SLIs and SLAs in place is because we want to ensure and measure it on an ongoing basis, is to ensure that we are on a winning path. Cricket mein every over they measure the run rate. If you're chasing the scores, they're okay. The team is going at a 5.50 run rate right now. To win the game in remaining 20 overs, they need a 7.5 run rate. That's the reason of measuring it. So if you are present to the impact externally, and if you're present to the impact internally, then what happens if the project does not happen in the time frame that you've mentioned? It can be brand image, it can be cost, it can be losing the client. There can be multiple things, and just having those impact in presence while we are in the goal itself, sometimes it helps.
yes, sir.
Okay, and the reason why I was reiterating on the goals, one of the reasons is about what is it that you're also measuring. And Krishna, I'll come to your example, which you've just mentioned about revenue. See, a lot of times our projects have different kind of outcomes that the client expects. So, for example, you're doing an API implementation for a client, probably because the client wants to gain a lot of market share. Whether profit or loss, he wants to gain market share. He wants to be at number one position, right? Sometimes the client wants to be more profitable, and hence they're trying to do the automation. Like Cedric mentioned, they want to do digital transformation. Now, is it digital transformation so that you handle a situation like COVID with ease in future? Or is it digital transformation because that's going to save a lot of cost to the organization? Or you want to do digital transformation because that will increase the efficiency of your team, and in market, your credibility to serve projects like this is going to become high. So what are we chasing? And that becomes important to think at a point when we start the goal, and that's where the what by when. What is expected? Are we expecting market leadership? Are we expecting to be number one? Are we expecting X number of revenues that we need to generate? Are we expecting X number of profit margins that we need to generate? What is it that, what stage of business we are, or what is this project going to deliver, is what needs to be defined even before we enter the strategy part of it. Because our strategies will then get aligned to these goals and these outcomes. So before I move ahead, Krishnan, just a question for you. You've mentioned about more revenues for us from the customer. Would you like to share some more insights on that?
Yeah. So this is essentially, as a bank, we are building a product for a corporate customer. So the end goal, the goal which we are as a bank are looking for, is that essentially a revenue from this particular customer basis this product. In fact, the measurable point is something like 50,000 transactions from him per month or something like that. Okay, so that's the measurable part of it. Okay. So that's the, in fact, in this particular case, that's a very, as you were mentioning earlier, case, that's a very specific goal we are targeting. And just on a side note, sometimes we do projects where that's not clear. Yeah, we have cases where now when you said I'm trying to recollect all the things which I have done in the last perhaps 6 months, where it is not being clear, and then we are in a situation where it's not so easy. But yeah, in this one I'm working on right now, that's a very clear goal on what we need to do. It's on also in terms of what is the number of transactions we're looking from the customer, so that we actually meet that goal.
Wonderful. So Krishna, in this case, just a little drill down, if you're okay for me to ask you, that with this 50,000 transactions, what is going to trigger this customer to get those 50,000 transactions, and why is it important? How is it going to make a difference to him?
So essentially, the need from the customer is already there. Okay, he has this need of this product, this particular product, and he's currently not able to meet that need because no particular person is able to give that particular product. No particular bank in the market is able to give that product to him. Okay, so essentially we are trying to meet those needs.
Wonderful.
And what the outcome the customer sees from those need is this 50,000 transactions. Not
awesome.
Yeah. So the 50,000 just honestly is just a number I'm throwing. It may not be accurate to the last T, but it's the approximate number as generally the estimations are done.
Right. Great, Krishnan. Thank you for sharing that. And I think, what I like, Krishnan, in what you shared is being aware about what need are we fulfilling for the client.
Yeah, so as I said, this case it is, and honestly now when you triggered a thought in my head, because in many cases we see it's not the scenario. And if I might take 2 minutes, essentially in projects which are very internal looking, performance improvement kind of thing, or in case of IT, or say regulatory implementations, it's very sometimes not very accurate in terms of the goal, right? It's split. Sometimes it's not clearly defined, right? Because say in the case of a regulatory project, you're just implementing something you think is what the end goal is, and there have been times when you implement and then we realize, hey, that's not what you wanted.
Right. It's a very apt Krishnan scenario, because I think we've dealt with a lot of it. And I'll just take a moment to share one of my experiences. Okay. So I used to be managing the collections, credit card collections unit in TCS when I was working for a bank in Australia. And there was one point where we were implementing COPC, and it came that, okay, you need to have X number of monitoring and X number of processes and XYZ processes that you need to have. So, like all of us do project management, I was managing this project of getting us through the certification process for COPC. And the whole game started with the same thing. Oh, we need to do this. Okay, we need to have these 8 calls done because the customer said 8 calls to be done. And this is how we do it, and this is what we do. And I think it was about 10, 15 years back. So maybe I was even not evolved to the thought process. And what we went into is the rat race of doing that because it was asked to do, and it was a part of the process for us to get certified. At one point when we actually realized the objective, and I think I keep thanking COPC for it, that when we went for that audit and during the pre-review is where these questions came up that, but why are you doing it? What's the kind of impact you doing this is going to cause on customers' goal, is where it actually started making us think, about the actions that we are doing, and where we actually need to go back and revisit. And then, from the blanket rule of we need to do 8 transaction monitoring for each associate in the process for the month, the question was, that's a very process related point. Is that 8 transactions monitoring fulfilling the end objective, which is to ensure that we are legally compliant, and then we are also ensuring that the customer is satisfied with what we do? The answer was no. There were few people who were following the process from day one, and while there were few people who are on the defaulters list every month. And do we have a differentiation strategy for that? Like Ashwini, you mentioned earlier that there will be different strategy for each stage of that project. And do we then follow those protocol, or it's like one defined strategy? But yeah, aisa khelenge. Every batsman who will go out will hit 6. Will not work. If you're playing against a McGrath, you would want to just make sure that his 10 overs are passed by, and then you have another bowler who comes who is easy to hit. You want to take and go full-fledged, batting across that point. So great, thank you, Taruna. Thanks for sharing that. In your work, the game is to make your organization competitive and capable to attract customer. Wonderful sharing. I think maybe think of a little more detail, or try and make it more specific. It sometimes helps, because when you have a specific rule, a batsman on 99, if he gets an LBW or he gets bowled, he's out. The opposite team doesn't say, "Arey yaar, ek run bana le, tera century ban jayega." Or if it's 50 overs done and the team only needs 1 run to win, the umpire doesn't say the fielding team ke chal ek ball aur dal de yaar, ye log shayad jeet jayenge. It's 50 overs done, 50 overs done. The game is over. So what is that game? What is, to make your organization competitive, what would you need?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you allow me, I just want to add one more thing. Like up to now, what we have understood is like the goal is to earn money or to satisfy the customer, right? But for me, what I am doing for my company is organization compliance and certification, right? For that, we are not earning any customer. We are not doing it to earn money. This we are doing to make our company compliant with the CMI level 5 or ISO latest certification compliant, so that our standards process will be standardized and we can attract more customers in future. That's the game of the company.
And wonderful. At the same time, Taruna, while you're doing this to certify your company for CMMI, and CMMI is a huge investment, right? We all know a level 5 certification for CMMI takes at least 1.5 years of efforts. I mean, we've done that for TCS when I was there. And the amount of man hours, if we calculate that we've put into the streamlining the process, meeting the standards, was humongous. The whole thought is, why do we do that? Why is it your organization has signed up for such a huge investment for a CMMI level 5? What's the business impact they're talking about? And I'm sure
because earlier I was in project management, so we do projects for government companies because we are a government company.
Right.
So we get a project, IT project. So to get a real stand in the market, like we are CMI ML5 compliant and ISO latest and certified stand. So that's why, just to earn customer.
Wonderful. And Taruna, for your team, the project management team. So if you are working with a set of people, it'll be good for you all to understand the business case for your company signing up for the CMMI. Because no board of directors or any organization would sign up for something which is such a huge investment of time and effort without having a business case in mind. And when you know that business case, so for example, even the kind of customers you all are attracting probably have respect for CMMI. Easily you're going for CMMI because there are 10 different kind of standardization certifications and benchmarking certifications available in the market.
Yes.
So understanding that business case is where, I'm reiterating, because that changes your entire approach to your strategy. So just keep that in mind. Thanks for participating. I think, Manoj, I should compliment this entire, PMI Mumbai chapter team, because, I've done many webinars, but the kind of interaction that these guys are having is really Awesome. And I should give a big round of applause to all of you all. Okay, great. Thanks, Taruna, for sharing.
Yeah. Kalpesh, I have one input.
Yes, Rishi. Yes, please.
Kalpesh, this is see when we do something, we measure the objective or we document the objective as on 3 different parameters. One is whether it is the objective is customer delight,
okay,
or it is going to like help us to retain the customers. The third one is whether it is going to increase the business or increase the revenue.
Wonderful.
So always the answers may not be yes, yes, yes for all these three parameters.
Right.
Maybe yes, yes for delight and retention. Maybe no for growth.
Right.
And sometimes yes for only for delight and no for the other two.
Perfect.
And maybe yes for all three.
Wonderful.
So it depends.
Exactly. No, Murli, very well said, because the important part is, I mean, of course, while the objective is important, but I'll say one is the objective, the second is the context of that objective. So you wonderfully said that sometimes it is only keeping the customer happy or delighted is very important. So for example, we used to have our visitors, and all of us have, when our clients come down, we ensure that they are taken care of. Not, of course, not during COVID, but I'm saying during the times when a client comes, when everything was normal, you want to ensure that his flight is comfortable. He's been picked up from the airport by some senior person. He's accompanied for dinner on all the 2 or 3 nights that he's staying. And there's a complete project plan in itself to take care of the client. Now, honestly,
we have to keep our ears and eyes open for that.
Right. And why do we do that, Murli, is because there's no direct business impact. You have a relationship with the client, and to ensure that, at that time, we either do that, some business development guys do that because, they know कि अच्छा और क्या business मिल सकता है, and let us try and do that. The seconds, maybe, no, this is a client, and the company's ethics say that, boss, if it's a client, we take care of him. Then whether it's a 50 million customer or a 500 million customer, we take care of that customer because he's our customer at the end of it. And that's the values probably the customer client, your company has. Or the third you said is because, there is probably a problem and you want to just keep assuring that, boss, don't take away the business from us. We're going to be there and we are working whatever we need to do to take care. The context becomes very important because your game plan will keep changing according to what your objective is and what is the context of that objective. So great. Thank you right. for sharing. I think, Manoj, on that note, I think it's 11 o'clock. We can take a pause right now and then get into the strategy and the leadership, the 2 aspects that I want to talk and come back.
Sure. We'll take a 10-minute break.
Okay. Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We come back in 10 minutes. Okay.
Yeah. And I'll just start my screen share. I'll run the slideshow.
Okay. Done, Manoj. Thank you.
Hi, Kalpesh.
Hi, Manoj.
Yeah, I'm stopping my share.
Okay, great. So is everyone back? Can I just hear some yeses or some chats saying yes, we're back? Thank you, Priya. Thank you, Shobit. Oh, Ranjit, thank you. Never left. I'm back to the city. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Wonderful. Okay. So we spoke a lot about the goal, the timeline. So now, the goal that you've written in the center of the page that you've done, uh, just see if you've also mentioned the timeline and then the objective of that goal. Why you're doing, what is the impact that you're looking at causing by achieving this goal. So if you've done that, just give me a thumbs up or a yes to go ahead, and we'll move from there now into a drill down of the strategy. At least make an attempt. You might not have all the right answers, okay? So thanks, Murli. Thanks, Rupa. So great. I'm taking that as a yes for everyone. And so let's now go into, now that we have the goal, we have the timeline, we know what is the objective, why we want to achieve that. Now let's talk about strategy. So strategy, and remember our topic is about decoding and mastering excellence, right? And we are trying to see what is the art and science. Is there a magic wand like a Harry Potter that says, okay, excellence achieved, and the whole miracle happens? Or is it only a set of principles, a set of approaches that we follow, which can directly ensure that we reach there? So great. With that in mind, let's go to the next slide. So we talk about strategy. Of course, I wanted to put this in animation and just bring one by one, but I thought, for the interest of everyone, for you to see the screen, I'm going to keep it on. When we design the strategy for the project that we have or for the goal that we have in mind, of course, a lot of times, not that we have a choice of demanding what we want, that, at times it comes that, okay, boss, Manoj, this is the project, this is what we want to execute in the next 1 year or 3 years, and please work. Or Cedric will be told that, okay, digital transformation, our entire ecosystem needs to build that. Please start working so that we are equipped with the next, scenario, next situation like this if arises. Or Brushali would be given a project saying, okay, we need this API implementation done in 30 days. No matter what, it's a huge business impact. And if we want to be in the industry, we have to do this. A lot of these projects come to our inbox or come to our hands like that get it done. Of course, all of us.
So sorry to interrupt, Kalpesh, just want to add to this.
Yeah.
Communication will be the key tool.
Yes.
When we do the API implementations, we have few government customer during this pandemic. So we were given the timeline of maximum 10 days. So,
right.
And fortunately with this proper communication with the customer, we achieved it within 7 days. So wow. Surely API payment standard tagline will be 30 days, but we can achieve it in the minimum days as well. So I think communication, proper strategy, and proper documentation of every process and stages will lead to achieve the goal within minimum timelines.
Very good, Vishali. I think that is excellent. And thanks for sharing that. And congratulations, for achieving something so huge in just 7 days. It's miracle. It's about, one of the lines that Manoj mentioned in my introduction is, and I like saying that is, one is about out of the box thinking, and all of us keep saying about out of the box, what is it that we can do differently? The inside the box thinking is similar to what you just mentioned, is what is it that we have already and can be done differently within that, so that we actually achieving what we need to achieve. So look at those tweaks, look at those right people assigning the right kind of work and achieving. So I think, Vishali, thank you. Sometimes the unreasonable demands from either our customers or our stakeholders actually make us do something that we ourselves wouldn't have believed in before.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. And while that starts, Vrushali, I'm sure it started with a headache. Yaar, ye log ko samajhta nahi hai, it can't be done. We need more time. But when those people sit on our heads, at times it actually pushes us to deliver it. And sometimes we actually take that as a game. And when we start playing, we sometimes, look at that as a successful outcome. Sometimes we fail. That's okay. It happens. But great. So, while these are very simple words that we've put here, but I'm just going to pick up each of those and talk a little more on that. So now in as an exercise, the page that you've created where you have the goal.
Kalpesh bhai,
Yes, Bharat.
In an external factor, I think I'm just suggesting, I don't know whether I'm right or wrong. When you say political factor is one of the factors, well, I would say cultural factor is also one of the important factor.
Yes, it is.
Because there is a cultural mix-up is always disturbing in all our action plan.
I am completely in sync with you, sir.
I'm just a suggestion. Thank you.
No, it is wonderful suggestion, Bharat bhai. I think probably that's something that I missed writing, but I am adding that right away. Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so team coming to.
Kalpesh, that was our president, Mumbai chapter, Bharat bhai.
Yes, hi Bharat. Now, I realized because I think he complimented the team, and I realized it from there that. So
thank you very much. Thank you, Kalpesh bhai.
Thanks, Bharat.
I don't know whether you remember us. We called you somewhere in 2007 or 8 somewhere at the university campus. I remember. I don't know whether you remember it very well. I remember you very much. You attended one of our morning session on Sunday. Attended means you delivered the session. I remember that way.
Okay.
In my list, it is there. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Bharat. Yeah. Maybe I'm sorry if I've missed that right now.
Yeah. That time we were operating at university campus, Kalina.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great. Okay. Thanks, Bharat. I'm sorry, I may be not able to recollect it right now.
It's okay. Don't worry.
Okay.
Yeah, fine.
But thanks, Bharat, for this platform again, and I think I'm happy to be a part of the chapter again. Okay, so team, so we're talking about the internal factors and external factors, and I said, I just want to go a little drill down into each of these that we just spoke. So we have share screen, and here is it. Okay, so let's go through the same goal that we just wrote on our pages. Now let's look at. I'm sure all of us by now have a project management toolkit or a guideline or a template that is defined, because I think project management has evolved. A lot of us are PMP certified. A lot of us have been working in this project management for the last 20 years, 25 years, and would have a lot of insights. What I want to talk about is the interconnectivity of all these aspects. So when you have a project plan in hand, like, and I'm just, maybe some of my examples are repetitive, and excuse me for that, but whatever I remember Manoj sharing or Vrushali sharing or Ashwini sharing or Krishnan sharing, I'm just going to pick those up and keep referring, but try and relate that to whatever aspects you have in your project. We go through this assessment of what is the project outcome. And now we've looked at why do we want that outcome. Now, when it comes to the next part, which is strategy, all the factors that we've written, the internal and the external, it can be, whether you look at the external ones first or the internal ones first, you will anyways have to look at all these aspects. And as Bharat highlighted, these are indicative. There might be many more factors. These are a few indicative factors that I'm mentioning here right now. So in the project, and Vrushali, I'll probably take your example as well of what you just mentioned about the API implementation, which because of the customer's demand, which was in 10 days, you all actually got it done in 7 days. we look at what we have in hand. All of us do it. So if there is a goal to achieve, and if I'm a cricket team's captain, if I know that now 300 runs is what I have to score, and I have 50 overs in hand, now I have a strategy to make. And what are the things that I will look at? Which are those 11 people I have on board? While there might be a defined strategy that opening bhaiya Tendulkar and Sehwag karenge, and then 1 down will be Dravid, and 2 down will be so and so, and 4 down will be so and so. But that's something that I will keep very lucid. It will keep changing as I go over by over, and the run rate that I have, and the bowler who's bowling at that moment of time, and whether it's a righty lefty combination that I want to ensure that it's going on in the field, and a lot of those variations and those factors which will keep my strategy fluid as it progresses. And I think one of the questions for us to consider is inside the same thing is, do we make a list or define what are the real requirements that we would have for this project to be successful? And a lot of times, in taking cases of what Vishali just shared, is a lot of times we have a protocol in mind. If this is what needs to be done, then this is how, this is the number of people I require, this is the kind of software I require, this is the amount of time I require, this is the amount of budget I require, and it's a set protocol which I have as a part of my template. Where the insight which I want to bring in here with all of you on the sheet is, have you defined each one of these? And let's go a little more into talking about the tools that you would require to make that project successful, that you have in hand right now. So, be it project transformation, digital transformation that Cedric was talking about, or how are you even defining those tools? Where do you get that information? Or, Manoj, you mentioned about the healthcare system and the project that you're working on that. What are those tools that you require? What technology or infrastructure that you require, or probably you've done that research and found out in the market of what is it that is available for you to deliver this project? How would you put those thoughts together? And if I may request Manoj for you to share.
All right. So just to give background, the particular product I'm talking about is a registry for rare diseases, basically patient registries, what we have.
Yeah.
And our customers are basically the healthcare organizations or research care organizations.
Right.
In fact, a part of our product is now given to some research companies to actually work on the COVID vaccine in the US. Our parent company is in the US, and that's why that's the background of this product. And so to ensure that we work on a cloud-based system, first and foremost, we identified, okay, do we work on Azure or do we work on AWS? So we identified the right tool, and then within that, what are the kind of technologies we want to use?
Right.
Okay, do you want to use Angular? Do you want to use C#? What kind of codes you're going to do? And then obviously identifying the right team. Right. So the infrastructure in place, you understand you're going to work on the latest technology. And then you have a manpower, a manpower plan. Okay, that this is the way you're going to ramp up your team, and then obviously the budgets and how to manage it, because it's going to be our product is basically a 3-year product, 3-year plan. So we will have different versions. We're already out with a particular version right now, and then we have a very version 3.0, which will be a very large one, which will have a lot of features, mobile app, Android, and Flutter, and whatever else you want to name it.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things we really think when we look at a product from a smaller scale, and then as we grow up and ramp up to where we want to be.
Wonderful. Great. And I think, Manoj, you mentioned, you actually covered all the aspects that are in consideration or what you would require for any strategy to be made. And what I want to, go a little more into that is looking at what are the connecting dots between each of these elements that we are discussing. So for example, you found out about the tools, and as you covered this, but I'm just in the interest of everybody here, that we speak about, okay, we need Azure or AWS. That is what we'll use as a tool. What is the technology we require? So we require, X bandwidth, or we require X number of laptops with this kind of configuration and this software for coders to do it. Connecting that to what is the manpower do we have? Do we need to upskill them, retrain them, or do we hire people from outside, because it's going to take a long time for these people to come in? Now, if we are hiring, then what is the cost that we are talking about? And what is the speed at which we can get people onboarded, and how fast they will get into the company's learning curve for them to be trained and look at. The same time, I think, Manoj, as you rightly mentioned, the second part, which is one, when you've looked at all these internal factors and done the connecting the dots, the next thing is about what are these external factors that will come in the play, come in picture. So, for example, what is the political scenario at this point in time there in the country, for the country that you're working on, you're getting this thing done. What is the economy they're going through? If I'm going to work on something which is for a company which is, or a country which probably has, an overall fall right now in the economy, and looks like, situations where we saw some European countries go bankrupt from a couple of I think decades back. And am I supporting that kind of economy? Which economy am I serving to? Now, while the debate can always be that, boss, this is something that is done by the people at the top who are looking at the business cases or who are getting those businesses for us. As a project manager, when I'm looking at delivering a project, for me to know these impacts of what country that I'm working with, what is the economy that they're going through, what political scenarios do we have, I think what I've not mentioned here is about the legal and compliance aspects, the regulatories. That's something very critical in our healthcare. A regulatory system of US is different than what is in India, to what is in Russia, to what is in China. And what are those norms that I need to look after and consider that when I'm doing my project? Cultural, which I think.
So, Kalpesh, the regulator part is definitely an external factor.
Yes.
So, in which it comes, like, or it is a separate bullet point here? It should be there.
Probably it will be a bullet point. Probably it will be a separate bullet point. So while it can be clubbed, I mean, see, if we look at it, it can be clubbed under, say, a geography part as well. But maybe regulatory, we can keep it separate, because regulatory in itself is going to be different geography to geography. But at the same time, there are some basic norms that come under the regulatory aspect. So legal and regulatory might be or a compliance might be a separate tab.
In the US healthcare space, we talk about HIPAA compliance, basically. Yes. Health Insurance Portability Accountability Act. And apart from that, so in the US, the patient health information is very PHI, as they call it. It has to be, is very confidential. So you cannot, share that data with anybody. You could get sued, and they, you could lose your job, or the company could shut down. So some regulatory compliance which we really need to be very careful about.
Right.
So privacy laws.
Privacy
yes.
laws. For example, Murli, I used to work in the collections unit, as I was mentioning, and we used to send out emails to our customers. Now, there was this regulatory, the ombudsman, banking ombudsman had this rule within Australia, that when you're sending out emails to the customer, you cannot mention the credit card number. Of course, the second rule there was that you cannot even mention the outstanding amount on that, because that email might have an access, and what guarantee you have that the email will fall into the right hands person. Now, that was the banking ombudsman's debate. So one of the restrictions that had for us, while our outcome was we need to do X amount of collections month on month, or only the current outstanding amount cannot be more than 10% of the billing value. While we would keep following up on emails and talk to them, we were not authorized to send SMSs, or we were not authorized to send out emails. And while we used to be working from India, so we said, can we use a SMS feature which was available? And the question was that, no, if you're going to use, and I'm talking about 10, 12 years back, currently there are a lot more technologies available. But at that time, there were very limited technologies which were available, and we had to keep ourselves in compliance with all these aspects and keep going back to the risk and compliance head to check that this is the thing that we're thinking. Can we do this? Can we do this? And that used to take away a lot of time into implementing the new ideas of projects we had. And parallelly, we had to keep running the strategy that, okay, boss, with what we have in hand, how can we still achieve that goal? Because if this is all possibilities that it may happen or it may not happen.
Yeah, I understand.
Right.
I have a recent example in my case.
Right.
There is a subsidiary we have. This is 100% owned subsidiary we have.
Okay.
And there is something which is already working for ages now, which is like a interface between the parent, my bank, and my 100% subsidiary, which is in this case is a company, another company.
Right.
So with the recent guidelines and regulations from RBI, the regulation says we have to keep our subsidiaries at arm's length.
Right.
Which indirectly doesn't allow us to do any interface kind of thing, specifically or separately or differently for him.
Right.
It has to be similar to what we do with our other partners. Like what I do is I have a lead line connectivity, which I do using which I do a interface between my bank and that company.
Okay.
Now, because of this arm's length regulation from RBI, I have to ask him to come through API gateway.
Okay.
And I am onboarding that guy as a API partner for me.
Okay.
So that is already implemented. So things change with regulations come.
Right. No, they do. You're absolutely right. For example, so I've been involved into so customer service and collections is what I used to be involved in, and as you rightly mentioned, Murli, for collections, the norms that we used to have for doing that collections in India versus when we were doing that collections for Australia were completely different. And talking about 10-15 years back, India, if you've not paid the bill after your 30th day, there used to be a time when on the 5th day after your due date, if you've not paid, somebody will come and knock on your door and look at what or when are you going to pay and how you're going to make that payment and all of it. While in Australia, that's only something which is possible after about 90 days of the person going overdue. You can't send a field agent for the collections activity before that. And these are the critical aspects that you involve while you're designing your strategy.
Right.
Of course, then goes the cultural part, the geography part. So, for example, in our toughest months for collections were always December and January. Why? Because culturally, Australia goes on holidays from 15th of December almost till 15th of January. They would be operating at about 30% or 40% of staff. And during that time, if you by mistake call somebody and tell them about, that they are overdue and you've called to collect, they are so sensitive that they take it personally to the extent of saying, you ruined my Christmas. And if I relate back to an Indian scenario, there is no restriction like that. Because you call and people in India, I think somewhere are not so sensitive. They're clear about what they are doing, or they would not have somebody ruin their Christmas or their festivals or Diwalis or anything. They're at least what I have experienced is that people are very open and transparent, saying, okay, no, this is what my concern is and this is what I'm dealing with. It doesn't get into an emotional tangent at all. But culturally, these two are different cultures. And if you as a project manager are handling, for example, if you're designing a technology which is going to be used by both the geographies, then these are some cultural, some social elements that will come into picture of what you're doing, how you're doing it. So and so what I want to do is I want to take an example, which is with a story, and I think all of us know about this story, but I'm going to highlight that here. All of us, I think, at some point of time in our lives have heard this story about a shoe manufacturing company who were trying to explore, Africa about hundreds of years back. I'm talking about, where they wanted to start a shoe manufacturing company in Africa. So there were people, two sales guys or two business guys who visited Africa. One was the guy from USA and the other was from Japan. So they went there and they did their survey, and the guy from the US, he calls back the promoters or the partners there and says, boss, nobody here wears shoes. There is no market here, and it will be a foolish idea to come back and set up a manufacturing to start selling shoes here in this geography, because it's completely different. The second guy from Japan, he calls back his promoters and his leadership, and they ask, so what is the scene? What is the news? And his answer is, this is tremendous opportunity. Nobody wears shoes here and no competitor in the market. We should come here as soon as possible and start our operations, because that's how we will actually get to take away the entire market leadership. And before even people come here, all the customers will become loyal to us. We have tremendous opportunity. Now, a lot of times this example is used in out of the box thinking and saying, how do you see as an opportunity? I want to actually look at and maybe ask this to the forum here, that why do you think this was a difference between what the guy from Japan said to versus what the guy from US said? What would you, and let's brainstorm. I'm not asking for perfect answers. I'm just trying to build a scenario and look at what do we understand out of a scenario like this.
It is perspective.
It's a perspective. Okay, wonderful.
The background, the upbringing of the two individuals, and the culture of the countries, maybe.
Okay. Wonderful.
First entry into the market.
Great. So
there will be no competition, and people would not know is it right, wrong, that way.
Right.
So they will always have that loyalty right from the beginning.
Okay. Perfect.
One is an opportunist.
Right.
Looks at for the positive opportunities. Even if something is not there, how do I take that opportunity and grow my stuff?
Perfect.
Risk-taking capability. US guys always think in terms of the way he's trained and thinks. That is the way he has thought like that, and he has not thought out of box. And then he replied, saying, "When nobody is wearing the shoes, so why should we? I mean, they will wear our shoe." That is the way he thought like that. Whereas in Japanese guys, is always just this man has said is an opportunities. He found a lot of opportunity because he's thought, yes, our shoes will be sold here without any mistake. His thinking is entirely different. He finds a gap to push his product easily. That is the way he is taught, and he is thinking that way. His think process is very important. Not that where this individual thinking is very, very sometimes blocked by a lot of learnings. That has created the issue here.
Right. Great. And Bharat, I would love to. I agree with actually everybody what you just mentioned about the cultural difference or the way the country's culture is about. Are they open to risk themselves into different markets? Are they how are they trained? Like, for example, whatever happened in Japan, we've all seen after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the way they fought back. So the whole culture is about venturing into and throwing your hat on the other side of the wall and then finding a way out. And which is right. And a lot of you mentioned about Ramesh, I liked your question that maybe Japanese are culturally open to change. Possible. And Tilak, your question is also bang on of risk appetite of both the individuals and which company do they belong to. Of course, if somebody is belonging to, if the Japanese guy was belonging to a company which was well established and had a lot of mullahs at hand to risk and to build appetite, wonderful. They would probably want to do that. Versus a guy from America, probably if he was from a company which was just at the starting line, or who were just trying to venture new geographies as an expansion plan, and did not have that kind of a background, would probably not be. So then, is it an apple to apple comparison? Is the first question for us to look at. I'm saying, considering that it was an apple to apple, what is it that matters in designing that strategy? And I have a few questions. So for example, if a Japanese guy, or I'll say the US guy, for example, is when coming and evaluating, what are the different aspects from a strategy perspective he look at? Is the market available? The question is whether it's about, we'll come to the question on how he looks at it. Whether it's about converting the customers or non-users into potential customers is one way of looking at it. The second is the market available? So are people really wearing shoes right now? Skilled labor available? So if they have to start manufacturing, do they have the skilled labor for people who will start coming, working with them and manufacturing this, or do they have to have the entire labor generated for that? Do they have various customers available for different price points, different segments, different age groups, different demands, or different utilities? Are there vendors, suppliers, retailers, supply chain which is available or not available? Is the raw material available? Or will you have to keep shipping that from different countries to bring it to Africa and then start working? The machinery, the technology, the infrastructure. There are a lot of those aspects which will actually go into making that decision. And all of these will become a part. So if the company decides to go for it, if the goal is to venture a new geography, like some of you said, that be the first in the market. So to be the first in the market, if that's the goal, these are all the strategy areas which will come, where you'll need to actually build that whole appetite and the ecosystem for you to establish yourself. It's not just going to happen because there's already a market available. So that's, I wanted to relate that to the scenario while we're talking about the strategy. So in your sheet where you've now mentioned the goal or the business impact, may I request you for a couple of minutes to just look at the areas that we just spoke about, and I'll just go to the previous slide, that which of these aspects you've already considered, and what are the connecting dots? Maybe you can just draw a line between the two areas that you're getting, so you actually know that what is connecting or interconnecting to each other points in your strategy, and have been considered or still needs to be considered. I'll just wait for a couple of minutes for you guys to just complete that. Just try and at least make an attempt.
Can you repeat, sir, if you don't mind?
Sure, Siddesh. So what I'm saying is, in the where we put the goal in the center, and we've written about what is the business impact and what is the timeline I'm talking about. Around that, just put down these areas of strategy that we're talking about: the tools, the infrastructure, the resources, the manpower, the budgets. And have we looked at each one of those aspects, or what are the areas which are still open and probably we have not got answers to those?
This is Suresh here. Can I say something, Kalpesh?
Yes, Suresh, please.
Yeah, I just remembered there is a very good Indian example to this. We don't have to look abroad.
Okay.
If you remember, there was a soap powder called as Nirma.
Yes.
Brought a packet of soap at 6 rupees.
Uh-huh.
And at that time, Hindustan Lever was, leading the market.
Uh-huh.
And multiple big players who could not succeed in a market dominated by Lever and Surf. Now, this man saw an opportunity where he saw that, there is a huge rural market, huge low-income market, who are not able to afford the expensive surfs of the world. They brought out and they swept the market, if you remember.
Yes.
So it is not necessary that market should be, the market is always available. In my opinion, there is always a market.
Right.
It's only how you look at it.
You absolutely
There's
bang
always a
on,
market.
Suresh. You absolutely bang on, Suresh. And you know, that's where it is said that there is never an idea or a product which is a failure.
Exactly.
It is about, so, you know, how you penetrated, how you created that need. And, you know, for example, today, in between for about 10 years, landlines, you know, all of us used to have a landline at home. And I remember we waited for 2 years. I'm talking about way back in 97. Then we waited for 2 years when we applied for a landline for a connection to come to our house.
Yes. Yes.
Just 20 years down the line, today, while we look at that landline is no longer used, but that's not now. In between, while for 7-8 years people looked at landline going out of business and MTNL going for losses, BSNL was not making, you know, revenues out of it.
Yes.
But today, a Tata Docomo came up with a complete different business model in that. And what they've now started doing, and I live in a society which has about more than 5,000 flats.
Correct.
What they've done, Suresh, is they have given the Tata landlines, Tata Docomo landlines, with a free number, which can be used internally as an intercom, but then that number is available for you as a landline for you to use.
Yes. Yes. True.
Today, Airtel is using that for broadband, that they're giving you a number with the broadband, which you can use. Jio is doing that today. So while you can use that as a landline number, and you can also use that for your broadband services.
Yes.
Now it's exactly as you said. It's about that innovation. It's about that, you know, positioning of the product and how is it catering to something else. So for me, as an example today, what I've done is my landline now has become my emergency number, and it's only there with my 5 or 6 relatives or people who really need me 24/7. Because my mobile is now become, you know, a number accessible to more than 5,000 people. I can't keep that on 24/7. So I have kept another, you know, backup that, okay, if you have anything emergency, call me on my landline, because I know it's you and you need something from me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
I'll tell you, sorry.
No, go ahead, Suresh.
No, please kindly complete.
No, I was just saying, so it's about the positioning, and as you rightly, it's about identifying that niche. It's about positioning that yourself at that point, and how are you able to sweep the market?
Today you're seeing where is Jio, and when Jio came in the market with a 500 rupees mobile and a connection,
right.
I met some senior officials from a public sector telecom company in Mumbai, as anybody's guess. So they all told me that Jio will be wiped out from the market, and we are the kings, and they cannot dislodge just because we have got a strong copper cable backbone in the country which nobody else has.
Right.
And this is what they said. So nobody has got a copper backbone like us, and so Jio is not going to be in the market. Jio set up their own fiber optic network.
Right.
You know where they are today now. That's the story is there. Okay.
Yeah.
And the company which I'm talking about is already merged with somebody else because it became unviable.
Yeah.
So you can dislodge big players on the market if you have the and acumen to do it, isn't it? Yes.
You're absolutely right, Suresh, and I think there are multiple examples in today's.
And
for
in
example,
in Jio's case, there was a lot of risk appetite.
Yeah. Just case there was a lot of risk appetite. You're right.
They pumped in a lot of money. They didn't care about returns.
And I would like to just say one more thing. I don't know whether I am forecasting something, but with COVID happening, the world is now changed forever, I think. And we are now getting into a massive digital transformation age.
Yes.
And I am seeing the modern day banks going much faster than the older banks, which are still slow to connect to the reality.
Yes.
And I am seeing a change in the banking sector coming. A wave which is coming is where new players are going to emerge, new players are going to dominate, older players are going to go away. It's all going to happen. Right.
Yeah, and it will keep evolving, Suresh, because see, we are all a part of the evolving. Now, today, if we talk about how many companies which started 100 years back are still surviving.
Yes, true.
Very few. You know, how many companies which started 30 years back are surviving?
Yeah.
Very few. So it will evolve. It's an evolving. We are in a new time phase where things evolve, things go up fast, and actually, the bell curves are huge.
Yes.
And it takes a lot of time, effort, sustainability, goal, strategy, which I love the statement which was made by Rajesh Gopinath, which is TCS's current chairman, the CEO, sorry.
Yeah.
And he had said that TCS completed 50 years last year, 2018.
Yeah.
Last to last year, sorry. And one of the things that they mentioned was very clear, that in the last 50 years, it is not that TCS did not go through disruption. This is, it had to go through and keep evolving and being with the market